The shape of the earth is spherical, which means that the earth is bulged at the equator and it is flattened at the two poles, that is north pole and south pole. It is like the shape of an orange, and the surface is very irregular. There are mountains, there are hills, even the plains are not completely plain, there are ups and downs. So it is very difficult for the cartographers. It is like a challenge for them to prepare a map of the earth. Therefore, the cartographers or the people who make maps, they use various techniques like layer coloring, spot heights, hachures, hill shading and contours to show the different features or three-dimensional features of the earth. A topographical map, which is also called as a topo map or a topo sheet, is a large scale map. That means a small area, a small region is shown on a larger scale on a map. What is basically a large scale map? It means that a small area, a small village, or a small town, or a small place is represented on a map. So every detail of that particular region is clearly shown on that map. So the scale is large, that means a smaller region is shown on a larger scale where details are given. Therefore, a topographical map is also a large scale map where a small region is shown in detail. Satellite imageries are taken, which is then interpreted, and various features are seen like elevations or heights, then drainage or rivers, vegetation of that particular region, man made features. Everything is shown in detail on a topographical map, whether they're roads, railways, whether they're urban settlements, rural settlements, agricultural fields. All these features are properly in detail shown on a topographical map. If you see a topographical map carefully, you will see various curved lines which have some numbers written on them. These lines are called as contour lines. Contour lines are imaginary lines. They're not actually present on the earth, but they're imaginary lines which are being made by the cartographers, which joins various places having the same height or elevation above the sea level. We measure any particular height above the sea level, which is a constant level. So any kind of height which is on the surface of the earth is measured above the sea level. Contour lines are all numbered. These numbers are written close to the contour lines because they indicate the height of the contour, which tells you what is the height of that particular land surface above the sea level. So if you see a plain area, it also has some ups and downs. Each and every upside down is measured and is represented by a contour line. Now let's talk about some contour features. Now, what are contour intervals? Now, each and every line which is drawn has numbers and they're at a regular interval, like from 75 to 150 to 225 to 300. Either they're increasing or they are decreasing. But if you see carefully, there are some intervals or there are some gaps in between two consecutive contour lines. This gap is called as contour interval. Contour lines always join places having the same height. Suppose a contour line is at 20 meters, which means all the regions of that particular area which is of 20 meters are joined together by this contour line. After 20 we have 40. So that means the region has a greater elevation, and all the regions having an elevation of 40 are connected together with the help of contour line. Contour lines always join places having equal height. Contour lines are widely spaced on gentle slopes. That means if the intervals are more and the contour lines are widely spaced, there is more gap. That means a region is more gentler. It is not very slopey. But in a map, if you see that these contour lines are lying very close to each other, they are almost entangled with each other. That means there are more slopes. It can be a hill, it can be a mountain. It is more slopey. There is more elevation to it. What are spot heights? So when a surface feature is represented on a map with the help of contours, the height of that particular point on the map, which is between the two contour lines is called as a spot height. Sometimes you must have seen that there is one arrow or maybe a point which is showing a certain number, which basically represents a particular height of a point which is measured or which has been surveyed. It can be a small hill, it can be a certain structure, it can be a building. What is a mountain? Suppose we have to represent a mountain on a topo map. A mountain is a natural elevation or a region of a height above the surface which rises abruptly from the surrounding areas. That means it is higher in comparison to its surrounding areas. As we see the contour lines which is representing a mountain, we see that the contour lines are ranged from 2000 to 2000, 250 to 2500 to 2750. So the height is increasing, that of a mountain, and as the elevation is increasing, the contour lines are also increasing. They are becoming more closer to each other. When the height is increasing, when the elevation is increasing, from the contour lines being spaced out to it becomes more closer to each other. It has become more clustered. When it reaches the point or the peak of the mountain, the contour lines become closer to each other. As the height increases, the contour lines also become close to each other. Now, if you see a hill which is lower in elevation or height as compared to a mountain, that the hill has fewer contour lines as compared to the mountain. The mountain has more height, it has more elevation, it has more land to it, so the slopes are more as compared to a hill. That is why hill has comparatively lesser contour lines, and the contour lines are more widely spaced as compared to a mountain contour line. A plateau or a tableland, which is basically a broad land which has elevation on all its sides. That means it's a land which is rising abruptly from the surrounding areas and it has a flat top. So if you see the contour map of a plateau, then it is more closely spaced contour lines on the lower slopes because there is high elevation or slopy land over there, and there is hardly any contour lines on the upper slopes because the upper slope is a flat land, it has more space to it. So the steep sides are represented by closely spaced contour lines, and a flat surface on the top is represented by a gap. What is a ridge? Now, if you have to represent a ridge on a contour sheet, then basically a ridge is a long and narrow stretch of hills and mountains. That means many hills and many mountains are all lying in a particular line or in a particular belt. That belt is called as a ridge, which has a number of summits. Summit means that some mountains are of a higher height or elevation, so the peak is at a higher height or elevation, whereas hills are at a lower height or elevation. So the mountain points and the hill points are all in different heights and elevations. If you take the highest point of the mountains or the hills, it becomes summit or the highest point, and these highest point can be represented as a long narrow stretch called a ridge. The peaks of the mountains which are represented on a contour line is of a higher value, and these higher values are represented in a line because it's a ridge. Coal. Now, coal is a land which has been cut or it has been eroded by two streams on opposite sides of a ridge. A range is a long and narrow as well as a continuous stretch of many mountains and hills. Now, if these ridges are being cut by rivers and there is a gap which has been created, then that is called as a coal. Difference between coal and pass is that coal is formed at a greater height. It is a gap between two mountains at a greater height, whereas a pass is a lower height gap between two regions, two hills or two valleys, or maybe a mountain barrier. So if you see this map, you will indicate that between two mountains which has closely spaced contour lines, we have this gap called as a coal. And around the valley region between the two barriers or between two mountains where there is more space and it is a low lying area, we have a pass. So when we move from a col to a pass, there is a drop in height. The col is at a greater height and a pass is at a lower height.